And welcome back. This is 105.9 The Radiator, The Rocket Shop, with your host, Tom Proctor. And with me now, welcome back, Princess Nostalgia. Hello.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in again. It's been a minute.
Yeah, full circle. I came on, I think, in my first year in Vermont, and now I'm moving away in less than a month, so...
Well, I'm very glad you managed to come back in before you left. I've got a million questions to you. But we always like kicking off with a song, so what have you got?
It is called Gestalt Switch, and Gestalt Switch is the subjective term, it's the term for the subjective experience of a paradigm shift. So an everyday example would be when you suddenly see the side of an optical illusion that was previously hidden to you, and you can never unsee it again.
She's a double-edged sword. She will throw you overboard. She's a double-edged sword. She will throw you over.
Princess Nostalgia there with Gestalt's Switch. So yeah, do you want to explain that song a little bit? As you said before the song started, it's that moment where you finally see the optical illusion and it breaks your brain forever.
Yes.
So.
The term Gestalt switch, I actually first was exposed to. I was a philosophy major, and that is a term that Thomas Kuhn used in his Revolutions of Science. It's called something like that, but it's basically about this problem that's inherent in the scientific method, that part of the process is knowing that in the future, as you get more information, you will disprove whatever is the accepted truth right now. So the song's just kind of about the limits of human knowledge. It's also about the heroine's journey. A lot of mythology that our society focuses on is the hero's journey, which is a more linear path with a kind of recognized goal, and it's often a man, obviously, who goes on this journey. The heroine's journey is more chaotic than that, and a classic example from Greek mythology would be the story of Persephone, who gets violently kidnapped and taken into the underworld by Hades, and she kind of learns to master the darkness through that journey and becomes the empress of the underworld. So a lot of I've been learning a lot about kind of witchy stuff. My friend Sophia Hurwitz, who is a witch, and I have been collaborating on a tarot deck because I'm also a visual artist, and so she's writing the book that supplements it. I'm writing the cards. And this song I wrote before working on the tarot project, but it's definitely about the heroine's journey, which is it's kind of about becoming one with your shadow side and one with the darkness, which the next song, which we don't have to jump to that right away, but it's also about that theme as well.
So it seems like you got a few singles have come out. I saw that 2 have come out in the past few months. Obviously, this seems to be a new one as well. Is this the indication that you got an album coming out, and does it all follow this heroine's journey theme?
Yeah, I think a lot of my music, even though it wasn't a conscious decision, definitely does. I think this pandemic was a bit of a heroine's journey that we all went through, and I started going to therapy over the pandemic, and definitely have learned how to. I think shadow work has been a huge revelation for me personally. Your question was there another question?
Was, so it seems like you're coming out with a few singles.
Oh, album. Yeah. I'm considering releasing because right now people's attention span is so fucked that I'm just focusing on singles, although I might kind of collectively release them as an album in the future. If I do, I'm going to call the album International Cyberspace Law, because I'm considering going to law school, and the real name is Information Technology Law, but I like International Cyberspace Law better, and I just like the ring of it, so I just recently decided that the next kind of collection of body of work that I release will be called International Cyberspace Law.
I love that. So you say, like many of us, started going to therapy over the pandemic, which is why it's so difficult to get a therapist right now.
Yes, I've heard.
So glad I got mine locked down. How did that change your writing then? And have you seen, and have you felt, it seems like you've seen a noticeable shift between, pre-therapy Lily and post-therapy Lily?
Yeah, I've definitely gotten a lot more in touch with my child self. The type of therapy I've been doing is called EMDR, which I think there's limits to talk therapy, especially for someone like myself who already has kind of overanalyzed everything, and I could spend hours articulating what happened in my past, but I think to a certain extent that's just kind of rehashing a certain surface level of analysis over and over again, when a lot of the healing that needs to be done is kind of beyond language and beyond rational thinking. So yeah, I think it definitely has come up in my work a lot. And like I said, the concept of shadow work and of learning to embrace the parts of myself that I tend to be ashamed of. By embracing those things and eradicating shame, it just opens up all these new doors, and kind of, because shame is just an energy, just sucks all your energy. And once you cease to feel that, it can be redirected towards beautiful things.
Listening to your songs from really when you first came to Burlington to now, you do seem to really tackle very large issues head on, and with this really unique kind of power, and just kind of being unashamed of your position and your opinion on these large topics. is that something that's important to you, or is it just something that just happens naturally? It's the sort of thing that's just going to come out regardless?
That's something I've unpacked in therapy, is that I've definitely felt since I was little that if I'm not, like, whether it's figurative or literally, like, yelling at the top of my lungs, that I feel invisible. But I've been working on how to not feel invisible, and I'm actually on a journey of not sharing all of my thoughts all the time. And I don't regret it because, you know, I've definitely, like, shared a lot of my anger in the past with the world or political views and all that stuff. But and I've also called out a few people publicly, and that was so necessary for my healing. But I don't think that's where the healing ends, and I think the real work does not have an audience. So I deleted all my social media over the pandemic. I had a bit of an existential crisis, and I came crawling back to promote my work. So I'm slowly building up my followers again, but I'm being a lot more intentional with what I share of myself. And I just think people can kind of figure out what my views are through my music. I don't have to constantly be kind of on the soapbox. Although there's a time and place for that, and I applaud it whenever I see it. I just think for me, I think I was sharing too much of my private world with the public.
Yeah, it takes a lot to be able to realize that and admit to it, and kind of rework yourself and come back in a healthier way. So
Yeah.
Congrats on that front.
Thanks.
So in terms of musical scene and the last 3 years, as you said, you're moving on in how long? Like 2 weeks?
August 1st is when my sublet ends. So,
Wow.
yep,
So we're
like
talking
10
like
days.
10 days, yeah. And we had you on right at the very beginning when you first came here.
Mm-hmm.
How have you developed as an artist in Burlington? What have your big takeaways from wherever you're going to next that you know you're gonna bring to that next place?
Yeah, I've definitely learned what my boundaries are, and I've learned how to advocate for what I want as an artist. Like, for example, on this radio show, I'm not performing live. I want people to hear my mixes as I spent hundreds of hours mixing them to be, because I've performed on radio shows in the past, and no offense to the people mixing it, but it's just like, I just want them, especially because my vocals are heavily edited and some of them have a lot of auto-tune and layers, you know, like, I just rather you hear it the way it was intended. And I do have a live show at the Radio Bean this Friday, if anyone wants to see that side of me as well. But, or even when I said that light is too bright, there's a light pointing at me in the where we're sitting right now, and just little things like that. Or during sound check, really not being afraid to do it as many times as I need to, or even in the middle of my set to stop and say actually that something needs to be louder or whatever. So yeah, learning my boundaries, learning how to advocate for myself, and just learning how to be more confident without being as, again, I think my aggression was a necessary step in establishing my boundaries, but now I feel like I'm a lot more relaxed in my confidence. I don't have as much of a chip on my shoulder as I used to. And I'm very grateful for the music community here because I think it's a great place to start out.
Yeah, I mean, we love so many of the bands coming in here, and everyone talks about how great it is to collaborate and work for the people and how much they lift them up. You kind of mentioned before, you know, you're playing this off your phone tonight because you've spent so many hours putting this together, and you want it to sound like it's meant to sound. You've always prided yourself on being that solo writer and producer of your own music. So is that changed at all, or is this something that, as you've developed as an artist, like, no, this is me, and I want it to be created by me and be exactly how I want it to be?
Yeah, I definitely have some OCD tendencies, which are a perfect quality for music production. I think it's a very healthy way for me to channel that. And I definitely identify as a producer first and a singer second. And I actually say that every time I perform now, because when it's just me on stage singing, a lot of people kind of underestimate what it is that I really do. I am kind of rethinking my persona, though. Like, performing live when I move. I'm planning to move to Berlin specifically, and the music scene there is amazing. And I want to start with at least some backup singers. I have like a animation light show that I created in collaboration with iLingual. Robbie Michelson is his real name. It's my visual art because I also design all my album art, but he's an animator who brought it to life. And then slowly to add some maybe more organic elements, but I do want my live performance to have more of an impact instead of just me with my backing tracks. And yeah, so kind of rethinking how I'm going to be presenting myself in the future, but definitely still identify primarily as a studio musician.
So that's the interesting change in itself. As you said, right now you perform on your own, on stage with your backing tracks. This new iteration of you in Berlin, which, by the way, very cool. you're kind of envisioning background singers already, so that's already suggesting almost like not quite a band, because backing singers are not quite a band, but it's already suggesting that you are ready to kind of work with people and have that kind of group that will be at least performing on stage as kind of a unit rather than a solo artist.
And I think since I am more confident in my boundaries, I didn't want to rush having a band because I didn't want to lose my artistic vision. And, you know, I would never want to have a band with my friends because they would probably just hate me because, you know, I'm telling them what to do. Like, they are doing what I say. So I think I kind of established myself enough that if I were to, you know, have band members join me, they'd obviously be adding something very valuable, but they would have to know their place. But I do think that there's more energy to a full band when you're performing, and I'm confident that my music is good enough that I don't have to perpetually be the opener. But I think when it's just one person with backing tracks, I understand why that tends to be the case.
Well, I'd love to hear another track. So what you got for us?
This next song is called Ugly Lovely, and it's actually also about the shadow work and about kind of unifying the sides of myself that I love and the sides of myself that I kind of hate. And once you learn to accept it all is how you can become whole.
Everybody got an ugly side, an ugly side, an ugly side. Everybody got a lovely side, a lovely side, a lovely side. Everybody got an ugly side, an ugly side. Devil's pie, hate to admit I hate a slice, hate to admit it. Taste it right, hate to admit I love the fire. Fool me once, first time I blame him. Fool me twice, second time I shame him. Now I got the foresight. I know how to backbite. I'd be a fool to lie, be cruel side, my ugly side. And I'll never love my life till I make it right with my devilish pride. If I hate you, hate to admit I hate me too. Hate to admit I can pick and choose. Hate to admit I love everyone. I can hide my yang from my yang, Shakti and Shiva chose to divide. And love is the eternal fight. Make sure you're on the right side. See the other side. Ditch the black and white. Freeze to reignite. Stop and go like a traffic light. Come and go like a satellite. Yes and no like my appetite. Fast and slow like my days and nights. Love my ugly side, love my ugly side. Love my ugly side, hate my ugly side. Love my lovely side, love my lovely side. Love hate my lovely side, hate my lovely side. Love my ugly side, love my ugly side. Love hate my ugly side, hate my ugly side. Love my lovely side, love my lovely side. Love hate my lovely side, hate my lovely side. Love my ugly side, love my ugly side. Love hate my ugly side, hate my ugly side. Love my lovely side, love my lovely side. Love hate my lovely side, hate my lovely side. Love my ugly side, love my ugly side. Love hate my ugly side, hate my ugly side. Love my lovely side, love my lovely side. Love hate my lovely side, hate my lovely side. Forget good and evil, it's only me. Division makes for chemistry. Endlessly, I breathe in high fidelity. They tried and failed to measure me.
Princess Nostalgia there with another new single, Ugly Lovely. So tell me a little bit about Berlin. Obviously, one of the coolest cities in Europe, if not the world. Got a great music scene, fantastic people. It's. I could go on and on about why Berlin is a great place, but obviously that's my own personal feelings. For you, what was the decision to go over there? What's the impetus?
Well, I've never been, but I've had a lot of signs from the universe to go there, and I was born in Italy, and my dad lives in Italy, so I have EU citizenship. I don't have a solid plan, to be honest, but I have some money saved enough to kind of go there and kind of like, I feel like I'm going to go there for a month. I have friends there, hopefully who I can stay with, and then within that month, find a place to live and find a job. But I kind of trust that things will work out if they're supposed to. If not, I can always go back to Italy. And, I know some people who are looking for English-speaking nannies over there. So, but Italy's beautiful. It's just not culturally that happening. Like, it's the place you go to eat well and, like, see beautiful art and stuff. But, yeah, I think Berlin, it's such an international, vibrant city from what I've heard. And one of my biggest influences is Kraftwerk. They weren't from Berlin. They were from Dusseldorf, I think. But I would just love to be in that, like, musical kind of culture.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have any problem kind of settling into Berlin. I've only been there once myself, but yeah, you seem like the sort of type that would thrive in that particular community.
I have the feeling that I will, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of great people doing some very interesting things. We've got to keep track of you when you're over there and see how your music changes.
Yeah.
With the kind of German and European influence.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's still quite a lot in music anyway, as you're Italian. So in terms of your last few weeks in Vermont, in Burlington, how are you kind of squeezing the rest of this time out in terms of getting the most out of it?
Yeah, I have 2 more gigs, maybe if I could finesse one more, potentially. But yeah, this Friday at the Radio Bean, my last gig at the Bean. And then the 31st, the literal night before I'm leaving, I have a gig at the Barrage, I'm not sure how it's pronounced, but that's in Holland, Vermont. So, yeah. And other than that, I just have a lot of people to see and it'll fly by. So, yeah. And I've also been, producing for other people, some remotely and also some in person. Over the course of the pandemic, I kind of redirected my energy towards building some experience as a producer working for professionally for other musicians in the scene. Right now I've been working with Peg Tassie, who is a local legend, and editing a music video of hers, and also mixing some. She's a producer, but I'm kind of have the computer skills to kind of do what she says. So working with her has been really fulfilling and interesting.
And in these 3 years, musically speaking, or even non-musically, what's been your favorite memory of being Princess Nostalgia in Vermont?
Oh, that's a good question. Favorite memory? Well, I guess the best kind of compliment that I've received that I think about was a sound engineer who had mixed a couple of my gigs, just said like, oh, you have a good reputation amongst the sound engineers at live music venues because you come prepared and your mixes are solid. And that was like the best thing I could have ever heard. Yeah, that means a lot to have a good reputation among those people. And just performing in general is really fun.
Is there any one particular show from, back in backyard of Juntiques to a house party to to playing at Higher Ground, like was there one gig that really kind of stood out and you're like, no, I nailed it that time?
Well, generally speaking, the most fun I have is actually like basement shows. They're not my favorite to attend, but they're some of my favorite to perform at, because some of the bigger shows I've done, like Grand Point North or Higher Ground's Backside 405, performing in broad daylight as the opener in a big space, it just feels like it's not the energy that I want to be in. So in smaller, more packed spaces at nighttime with cool lights, when people are kind of buzzed, it's just the energy is just a lot more electric. I can't think of a specific gig that was my favorite, but that's definitely the environment that I most prefer.
Yeah. And yeah, again, I'm sure in Berlin there's going to be a whole host of places like that you can be able to perform. Honestly, it's going to be such a fantastic experience. I do see you've also got a second profile in 7 days that's going to be coming out. And obviously that's after you've left, it'll probably be coming out, so someone's going to have to send it over. But that's a pretty rare thing. What does that for you tell you about how Vermont kind of, I know, embraced you? Did that come across, or is it kind of like, it is what it is.
I feel very grateful for the Burlington music scene. And one interesting challenge about moving to Berlin is that I will be a small fish in a big pond where a lot of people are doing similar stuff to me. Whereas in Vermont, it's changed, but it is like very kind of jam band dominated. And to be a femme music producer doing electronic music in Burlington, I don't think it was that difficult to stand out. So it'll definitely be a new challenge to go elsewhere. But yes, it's a very active music scene, but it's small enough and welcoming enough that it's a great place to start and to get on your feet. And I really appreciate the support that I've gotten from a lot of people in this industry here.
Yeah. So as you said, you're very different from Vermont. You're doing something very different. You kind of look very different. You sound very different. You definitely turn heads in terms of just not just the music, but everything from the aesthetics to the attitude. Going to Berlin, as you said, people doing similar things. Have you got? I mean, you're going to bring on backup singers, but have you got kind of a vision? Year, 2 years, 5 years down the line for what Princess Nostalgia is going to be?
I've definitely been rethinking just aesthetically how I'm going to present myself, because in the past I've worn like things that feel a little bit young for how I'm feeling right now. I wear like a lot of pastels and wigs and just like, crop tops and stuff like that, which is nothing wrong with that. But I've been thinking like, my dad was like, maybe you should get a tux, like a custom tailored tuxedo, or like maybe just all black and only wearing a tiara. But I want to have myself be less of the focal point and just be more understated on that part. And also when I perform, because it's just me on stage, I do feel a lot of pressure to be moving and dancing, which compromises my vocals and my ability to be truly present with the music. So having backup singers, having a light show, having more going on will enable me to just be a lot more meditative and understated in my stage presence. And I'm excited to explore that. And more generally, I've been leaning into humor with my work since I began, and I've just been getting more and more into that. I've been dabbling in a bit of stand-up. I did my first open mic night a couple weeks ago, and I've just been posting short clips on Instagram as well. But I don't ever want to take myself too seriously as an artist. I always want to maintain a light heart and a sense of humor, and Missy Elliott is a huge influence, and that type of humor that she has infused in her work is just like it just like feeds my soul.
Kind of aesthetically speaking, who do you consider your influences, apart from obviously Missy, obviously with the humor, and she's also got great clothing styles and aesthetics to her own self, Yeah. And she's very unabashed about who she is, and she kind of leans into it. But yeah, apart from Missy, who else is kind of the people you look to when you kind of style yourself musically and aesthetically?
There's so many. The ones that I've said for a long time are Kraftwerk, D'Angelo, Hiatus Coyote. The way that they blend a lot of different genres is really exciting to me. James Blake, Tierra Whack aesthetically is really awesome. Although I did say I'm trying to get more minimal, but I do love the way that she styles herself, and just she also has that sense of humor in her work. I'm sure I'm missing so many artists that recently I discovered Zevda Lisa. She produces all of her own work. She has that kind of more, I don't know if I want to call it minimal, but it's a little darker. And she produced, I already said she's a producer, but I discovered her over the course of the pandemic, and I find her sound very inspiring as well.
In the Burlington scene, the Vermont scene, and not even maybe musically, is there anyone in your friendship group or other people you've seen where you're like, hey, they look pretty good, or they're doing something kind of different that I really like? Is there any kind of like local influences you've taken and either put that into new songs or put that into kind of more of your look and or the stage presence you're starting to think about for your next iteration?
I've always thought Juicebox is really fun, and they have that energy of having a lot of people on stage. They keep things light. Who else? I recently discovered, who I think Hetty Betty. She's cool. I'm very different from what's going on around here. So yeah, I listened to her EP recently, and that was really, really awesome. And I loved the kind of energy and like edginess of it. Oh, Cebu Yuma. They're like one of my favorite live bands to see. Their rhythm section is just fire.
Yeah. I was also thinking Miku Daza, not your
Oh
aesthetic
yeah,
at all,
yeah, yeah.
but
It's
also
like so much
very-
pressure because there's so many people who I respected in mind. I don't want to leave anyone out, but Miku's awesome too, for sure.
Yeah, we had Hetty Betty and Miku in past few months ago, and yeah, again just fantastic energy, just very unapologetic, and I just love that. Well, this is all we've got time for. I gotta say, best of luck. We've got about time for one more song.
Okay.
So before I let you go, Radio Bean on Friday,
Yep.
and then
Yeah, the Barrage, which I'm playing with Father Figure on the 31st of July, and then one other thing I should mention is that the guitar player I'm very like kind of selective with who I collaborate with, but my long-term collaborator on most of my songs, Joe Leitrick, he puts down his own work as well, but he's an amazing guitar player. I was shocked that he hadn't heard of Nile Rodgers because his playing like reminds me exactly. And my little brother's named after Nile Rodgers, so it's definitely the vibe that I wanted, and he always brings my songs to the next level. This last song is the cover of Jolene by Dolly Parton, and it is going to be my next released tentatively on August 25th, and it will be coming out with a music video as well.
Ba-da-da, 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 ba-da-da. Your beauty is beyond compare, with flaming locks of auburn hair, with ivory skin and eyes of emerald green. Your smile is like a breath of spring, your voice is soft like summer rain, and I cannot compete with you, Jolene. Jolene, 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 Jolene. Please don't take my man, I'm begging you, please. Jolene, 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 Jolene. Please don't take him just because you can. He talks about you in his sleep. There's nothing I can do to keep from crying when he calls your name, Jolene. And I could easily understand how you could easily take my man, but you don't know what he means to me, Jolene. Jolene, 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 Jolene. Please don't take my man, I'm begging you, please. Jolene, 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 Jolene. Please don't take him just because you can. Well, you could have your choice of man, but I could never love again. He's the only one for me, Jolene. I had to have this talk with you. My happiness depends on you, and whatever you decide to do, Jolene.
Jolene there by Princess Nostalgia. Thank you so much, Lily, for coming in. I really
Thanks for
appreciate
having
it.
me.
And as I said, once again, best of luck in Berlin, and honestly, Burlington's going to miss you.
I'm going to miss it too.
Well, that's about all we've got time for tonight. Big thank you to Night Protocol for also coming in. Join us next week when we've got the Rose McCann Band coming in. But now that's all up. So this has been The Rocket Shop. I've been your host, Tom Proctor, and good night.